and welcome back to another edition of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast presented by DreamCricket. I'm your host, Peter Della Penna, and on today's episode we have part 2 of the interview with former USA all-rounder, current Barbados Royals and West Indies leg spinner Hayden Walsh Jr. In part 1 of the interview, we talked about Hayden Walsh's journey to first-class cricket and eventually an international debut with USA, and then how that USA career came to an abrupt end over a contract dispute with administration officials in American cricket, and it opened the door for Hayden Walsh Jr. to go to the CPL, where he became player of the tournament in the 2019 edition of the CPL, parlaying that into a call-up to the West Indies squad. We'll talk about that call-up and USA's Hail Mary attempt to try and stop him from leaving the USA setup altogether. We'll also talk about the ups and downs that Hayden has experienced with the West Indies, especially with COVID, which he contracted at the start of the tour to Bangladesh, tail end of 2020, that forced him to miss some time on the field, and also just quarantine life and biobubble life in general, which Hayden speaks quite eloquently about the struggles that players face being away from home, being away from family, and just being confined. So plenty to cover in this episode. But before we get to the interview, I want to recognize the newest Patreon subscriber to the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, Tim Lowell. Tim is a longtime follower of American cricket, originally from New York. He now lives in Texas, where he volunteers as a USA Cricket volunteer coordinator. I met Tim at the USA Under-19 National Championships at Prairie View back in April. So, Tim, I appreciate your support coming on board as a Patreon subscriber, and a reminder to everybody else who hasn't done so, what are you waiting for? There's all sorts of opportunities on Patreon and subscription levels that you can sign up for to help support the podcast and keep it running on a week-to-week basis. And I thank everybody who has already signed up. And I also want to thank our sponsors. A reminder that the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, presented by DreamCricket, is also sponsored by Moosa Cricket Stadium, the first and original turf wicket facility in the state of Texas. For more information, call 713-534-2195. That's Moosa Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas. And now, part 2 of the interview with Hayden Walsh Jr. Sandy Blemachane was drafted as the star spinner, the star leg spinner in particular. And so you actually started the tournament on the bench behind him, and you were getting an opportunity to play as a subfielder. And I remember you took a spectacular catch, I believe, at backward point as a subfielder that started to get you a bit more on the radar. But until he left for his Nepal commitments, you were not guaranteed a place in the starting 11. So the fact that you had an uncertain situation in Barbados, and yet you still preferred that over what was happening in the USA setup at the time, that speaks volumes to me, and I think other people who hear that would also find that fascinating, that was the atmosphere in the USA environment at the time to lead you to that kind of decision, and it wound up obviously paying off in the end. What, in terms of if there's a specific match, did you feel was a turning point in that season in 2019 for Barbados Tridents that helped propel you to go to the heights that you reached in that event leading to a West Indies call?
It would be the match that I got the 5 wickets. You know, I played a couple of games before, but I got like 2 but the match where I got the 5 wicket haul, that started to propel things. Even at that point, I wasn't thinking about West Indies. You know, I still had USA cricket in the back of my mind, because I wasn't thinking about West Indies cricket. I just thought, you know, once I get some sort of opportunity in the CPL, me playing franchise cricket amongst the best players in the world and performing, there would be a time where USA cricket is going to be like, all right, come and play for us. You know, I didn't think that it would be such a big propulsion, but but you know, it's it was that match where I got 5 wicket haul, and then wickets just started flowing, and then I think it was in Guyana. I think we played Guyana when Brandon King got the 100. before that game, saw one coming up to me and he was like, "Yo, I know you play for USA Cricket, but can you play for West Indies?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "So would you play for West Indies if they pick you?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure." And then is when like West Indies started to turn over in my head. I was like, wow, I really could, play for West Indies. And then it wasn't like big on the radar, but it was just in the back of my mind. But I was still, focused on finishing the tournament and winning the tournament. But then, it was before the finals, either before or after the finals. I spoke to the new CEO, and I had to call him up, and I was like, if West Indies call me, I'm gonna take this call. I'm gonna take my opportunity to go and play for West Indies. I don't think he was very happy about that call. He was like, you sure you want to take this? You don't want to take it, and then you get benched after one series. And I was like,
Sorry,
well,
this is the USA CEO or the West Indies CEO?
USA CEO.
So USA CEO. So Ian Higgins calls you up.
Ian Higgins, yeah. Ian Higgins. I called him and I was like, it seems like West Indies are going to call me.
This was his last ditch sales pitch to try and convince you to stick with
Yeah.
USA. So what was his sales pitch to try and convince you to stick with USA?
Yeah, he was like, well, you don't want to get lost in the system. You don't want to take this opportunity and you get one series and then you get benched and you can't play for USA anymore because, of course, if you play one game for a full member team, you can't play after. Yeah, so, and I think at that point, I was already like, my mind, I wasn't very interested in taking the contract as well. So my mind was really off of, not completely off, but they weren't in my good books. so so yeah, I was like, all right, I know, but I'm gonna take this opportunity, and if it doesn't work out, well, that's on me. So yeah, that is how I really like switched over from USA to the West Indies.
And for the most part, it has worked out. There's been a few bumps in the road as well,
Yeah,
but you started off, and some of that experience on the batting side with USA helped get West Indies across the line in a match against Ireland, 40 or 50 run partnership for the last wicket. Also, most recently against Australia, there was a gap in there where you were out of the team, but you got a recall against Australia and were a leading wicket taker in that series. What for you has been the favorite part of, or the most memorable part of representing the West Indies so far in your career?
there were a few. Of course, you have the one wicket win against Ireland. That was like memorable, especially being on the 10th anniversary of my father's death. That for me is gonna be like in the top five. The first T20 against Australia, that's up there, and me getting the 5 wicket haul. I think that might be one of my number one, probably joint number one with Ireland and taking a 5 wicket haul because I was nowhere near the ODI team, and it so happened that Fabian Allen was hurt. Quite a few guys were hurt, and I remember I was still in the bubble, and there was ODI practice. I didn't go to any of the practices, and the night before, the coach messaged me and he was like, "You're in the team. You're in the team for tomorrow." I was like, "What?" And still, I thought I was in the team, so I thought I was just like in the 13 because Fabian Allen was out. So I was like, okay, well, Fabian is out. Maybe I'm just going to go there as a substitute. I went to breakfast the next morning and I was at breakfast and so I was speaking to Jason, and Jason was like, Hayden, like, you might play today. I was like, what? I didn't even have I went to the ground and my gear bag wasn't even there. So I was warming up in my. I remember warming up in my sneakers, like bowling in my sneakers, and I got my gear bag, and I don't know what happened. I bowled really well, and I got 5 wickets. But me playing that ODI series, it was really far away from me. I wasn't nowhere mentally thinking, okay, well, I may play or I may get 5 wickets. So yeah, I think that's one of the memorable moments for me.
This is the first ODI that was at Kensington Oval in Barbados back on July 20th. You took 5 for 39 in that match. One of the things that's remarkable for me about that is from my own memory, being on tour with USA, covering USA in the UAE back in 2019 before the team went to Namibia. You were a net bowler for the Australians.
Oh yes.
You're bowling to Aaron Finch, you're bowling to Peter Hanscom, you're bowling to some of the other guys who were part of that tour. And for me, it was just so remarkable to have witnessed and observed for your career arc to go from being a net bowler for the Australians with the USA team, where again, there's this attitude of associate players are there to be net bowlers for full member players. They're not supposed to compete against full member players. They're not supposed to line up on the opposite side of the field against full member players. And yet, 2 years later, there you are, bowling to Aaron Finch and the rest of the Australian team in the T20 series and then in the ODIs. When you think back to that in March of 2019, to then where you wound up on the opposite side of the field, not being a net bowler, but taking a 5 wicket haul against the Australians in an ODI and being the leading wicket taker against the Australians in a T20 I series, what to you is the most remarkable and gratifying part of that journey?
I don't know, like, it's to think about it, it's just so it's wild. It's definitely one of those things that I couldn't tell you, well, yeah, I was gonna come bowl, be a netball, and I'm gonna come and play international cricket for West Indies. I couldn't write that script. It's just to show you, once you put your mind to anything, you can be whatever you want to be. And being in associate cricket, I think that everyone in associate cricket, all the teams, should, aspire to be at that top level. Because, yeah, it's, you have your difficulties, training and all that stuff, but, we are all the same people. We're all the same, we have blood, we have tears, we're made up of the same thing. So, there isn't to say that, associate cricketers can't compete with full member nations. So I really would like USA to, have that aspiration to be on that level and to not just to be there, but to perform. And you just need that mentality to get there. And everyone, it shouldn't be one person. It should be everyone buying into one system and everyone wanting to, go in the same direction.
In terms of bumps in the road, you were not in the best of form heading into the Bangladesh tour at the tail end of 2020, and then you get COVID, and you spend a significant amount of time outside of the playing 11. And I know in a previous interview you had said you were really, really geared up for that tour because you wanted to reestablish yourself as a consistent must-pick player in the 11, and then COVID happens. Take me through that experience, just all the energy you poured into preparing for that tour, and then when you get the news, what was it like for you, not just from the standpoint of being unable to play and contribute in the way that you wanted to on the field, but just mentally, what that does to affect somebody?
Yeah, like before that tour, I had just come back from New Zealand, and it was a hard tour in New Zealand where ball wasn't spinning much. I didn't get to play in the T20 games. Played a few first class games where we got hammered. So I really was looking forward to going to Bangladesh where the ball was spinning, and I felt as though that I was a lot more consistent coming out of New Zealand because with the ball not spinning, I had to be a lot more consistent and a little bit more patient. But going into Bangladesh with the bowling form that I had, I was really looking forward to hit the ground running. But then COVID happened. That just hit me left field. Yeah, I was really disappointed. I remember I was watching the first game, and I see Akil Hussain come on, and the first ball he bowls rags past the bat. I literally just turned off the TV after that. I was like, no, I'm not gonna. This is really disappointing. But being in Bangladesh, it was hard, but I think the hardest part was going back to Antigua and not really performing because I was really undercooked. I sat a whole month in quarantine. I had 2 days of practice going into the Super 50. I went into that first match I just remember being really, really sore, and it just wasn't working out for me. So, I think not having the best Super 50 after that, I was quite disappointed. But being the World Cup year, I was saying, what, all right, it's not working out right now. Let's just sit back and just work a little bit more, and hopefully my opportunity will come sometime soon.
You took 7 wickets in 6 matches in that Super 50 tournament. What did it take to go from that kind of performance to the level of performance you produced against Australia?
Lots of practice. I actually stayed back after Super 50. I was a net bowler, pretty much, for the Sri Lanka series. So I bowled to the T20 guys, I bowled to the one-day guys. I stayed back for the test. I'm sure you saw me field for the test team, but in the background, I was still doing my work. I was still working on my bowling and that stuff. So it took a lot of patience because seeing the team that you were in and you're not in it, it was really tough being there and not being in the team. I really thought, like, coming out of New Zealand, I was in such good form. So I felt as though I got robbed a little bit from COVID, because if it weren't for COVID, I would have played in Bangladesh, and I can't tell you that I would have gotten the world of wickets, but I had high hopes of doing well there. I really try to be resilient and try to get back up from all my fallings.
Today's edition of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, presented by DreamCricket, is also sponsored by Moosa Cricket Stadium, the first and original turf wicket facility in the state of Texas, located at 5515 McKeever Road in Pearland, just 5 miles off the Bailey Road exit from State Route 288, a half hour south of downtown Houston. Moosa Cricket Stadium includes fully enclosed locker rooms and change rooms, plus shower facilities after a day's play, as well as outdoor nets for all your training needs. Aside from the main turf stadium ground, there is now a second ground at the facility open for use. For more information, call 713-534-2195. Moosa Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas. One other obstacle throughout all this process is quarantine life. And somebody who's been through it, whether COVID enforced or the biobubble atmosphere and being confined and restricted in terms of a lot of the activities that you can and cannot do, I find to be quite remarkable, and I have a lot of respect for the players who have gone through it, because it's not easy just reading about it externally, and I can't imagine what it's like going through it, especially for somebody like you, who people are not aware. You've got a couple of young kids, you've got a young family. Being away for an extended period of time, even when you're theoretically at home in the West Indies, you're not really at home. Being away from St. Kitts and being away from your kids and your family under normal circumstances, I can't imagine is easy on tour and touring life. But then having to be in an enforced restricted zone in what is theoretically supposed to be a home environment, you're still not allowed to see your family or do things that you would typically be able to experience. So just from a personal standpoint, I'm curious what that has been like for you and what kind of challenges you have had to face and the difficulties you've experienced to try and maintain your focus on cricket when you're not able to do a lot of the day-to-day family things that you would want to be able to do.
I mean, like, I was telling someone actually going to play cricket and going to practice and just being on the field is actually my getaway from just being inside of the hotel and being inside of my room. Yeah, it's really tough. I don't think there's any, I don't know, but being in a bubble is just so hard because you're not able to go out. You're not able to separate yourself from everything around you. Usually in normal times, let's say you have a rest day, you can go exploring, or you can go have dinner at a restaurant. But it's just like you're eating out of food boxes all the time. And yeah, I wouldn't call it life at all, for sure. I really wish that we could find a solution. And yeah, well, all I know, it's really tough on me mentally. Like it's a 24/7 thing. It's no like get away from, okay, well, I can't go into the supermarket and pick up a few things. I have to get someone to get it for me. The thing is just no getting away from it, and that is just the hardest part. So me playing cricket and me, going to practice and all that stuff, I'm actually, happy with playing cricket because it just helps me to get away from, bubble life. Yeah, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
One of the things I found quite astonishing was the reaction that the Sri Lankan board had on the players who went out one night for a cigarette break. I guess it was in England, and they were sent home from the tour, and there was a huge drama around that, and they wound up being suspended for more than a year is the end result. And I think there's a false perception of players need to be quarantined or players need to be in a biobubble because, well, they're superstar athletes, and after a day or a practice or a night of a game or whatever, after a game ends, well, there's this idea that, oh, they're going to go partying or they're going to go to a nightclub or they're going to go out on the town and go wild and go crazy. And it's not about that. It's literally fundamental day-to-day life being denied
Yeah,
in terms of just, like you said, going out for a walk, going out to get food, just going out and decompressing, having
yeah,
something to do to just get your mind off of the task at hand. And instead, you're staring at four walls for
yeah.
the entire time that you're not on a cricket field. If you had a recommendation for cricket officials as to why bio bubbles should cease going forward, what would be your number one reason that you would offer to any cricket administration official internationally as to why bio bubbles are unsustainable regardless of the state of the COVID pandemic wherever a tour is being hosted?
I think it would definitely be mental health. If one is not very strong mentally, things could go. We've seen players in the IPL say, well, I can't really handle this, I'm going home. And it's literally just that. Your mental health is just like so downgraded when you're in a bubble. That I think that's the reason. Like, even like, I don't think bubbles are getting easier either. I was telling my friend, like, from the first day for this bubble, from being out to being in, I'm already just not on the level anymore. Because you just feel so confined and you just feel so helpless at times. Good thing this is not such a tight bubble, but you just feel as though you're not free. It just plays with your mental health, and you really have to be mentally strong to be able to cope with that on a day-to-day basis.
So, what do you do to cope with it on a day-to-day basis to make it manageable?
At the start of the bubble, like, I remember I used to work out a little bit. I started painting.
When you say
Uh,
work out a little bit, I mean, is that literally in your room? You're just doing push-ups and sit-ups and trying to be creative with what you've got in your hotel
yeah,
room space?
yeah, for sure. Doing those like push-ups, sit-ups, squats, all of that stuff. I walk around with bands, so in case we get in the middle we get locked down. I can probably just do a little workout by myself. But I've found like those things are just starting to get monotonous, and I'm starting to be like, all right, I need to find something else. But I haven't had like a formula or anything that really keeps me in check. There's
You say painting. I'm curious about that. I find that fascinating. And so, were you a painter before all this started, or is
no,
it something
I
that you
wasn't
picked
a
up as a new
painter
hobby?
before. I wasn't a painter before, but a friend of mine introduced me to it. So yeah, not necessarily introduced, but I saw them do it, and I was like, oh, let me try doing that. And then I got interested in it, and it became fresh and new. But now I walk around with the paint stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't want to paint. But I was never a painter, and I just kind of got into it, seeing my friend do it, and I'm okay at it. I'm not like the best. I paint what is on my mind or how I feel, or I would like go on Pinterest and try to recreate other people's paintings and that stuff in my own head, and in my own way. I don't think there's like anything that right now I've been trying to read a book, but I really have I've gotten to opening the book. I've actually read like a paragraph, and then I'm like, all right, it's boring. Yeah, it's tough, but hopefully when the games start, you don't really have much time to think about, just sitting in a room and not doing anything. But once you're like in quarantine and not doing anything, that is when it gets real dull.
Hearing you talk about this, I'm thinking to myself, the worst possible thing that could happen in this situation with this must have been all the rainouts in the Pakistan series, because you're so looking forward to playing and so looking forward to getting out of your hotel, and then the match
Yeah.
gets rained off, and it's like, oh geez, I got to go back to.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that period was okay because we were coming towards the end. But if it was like the middle, then I don't know how I would have coped with it, because I was looking forward to playing, and it was a new team, and we lost the first. Well, we lost the first game, so we were looking forward to winning another game, but the rains came, and we're disappointed, but I'm glad that it was at the end of that period, so I was just looking forward to getting out of the bubble.
You've got T20 World Cup coming up for the West Indies. It's something that you weren't able to get to do for the USA, but you've got a big objective there as the defending champions with West Indies. You coming to the squad and now figuring to play a pivotal role, aside from obviously wanting to win and repeat and defend the title for the West Indies. What are some of your other goals that you're hoping to achieve, either on a personal level or as a team at that event in the UAE?
I haven't necessarily set out like goals, but for me to play like a role, just being there to, just playing that spinner role and playing that role where I come in and take wickets, or if I'm not taking wickets, keep things tight, and in the field, just really going out into that environment and showing out. That is just what I'm thinking about now. That's the world stage. That's where everyone is going to be looking. For me, just going there and executing, and results aren't guaranteed. But once I go there and perform, and you can see, well, okay, Hayden is this in the team, and you need Hayden to be there because he's gonna get you a couple wickets, save a few runs in the field, and probably smack a few at the end. That is what I'm looking forward to, and also winning the World Cup with the Gales and the Bravo and the Pollards. I'm really looking forward to doing that on the biggest stage.
How much of an impact do you think it will be on your experience, the fact that you were able to tour there with the USA and play a number of matches in Dubai, practice in Sharjah, and get exposed to some of those conditions rather than just going there blind in a sense and having it be your first touring experience in the UAE?
Having that experience with USA, it's definitely was needed. And going into that tournament now, I don't feel like if I'm in the wilderness. I know what to expect. I know how the wickets play. I know how the weather is and all that stuff. So it's just one of those things where okay, I'm gonna go and this is what I need to do, and I know I need to. This is how I need to go about things. So having that experience with the US, yeah, I think it plays a big role.
Before that, you got the CPL as your lead into the T20 World Cup. You're a player of the tournament in 2019 for Barbados Tridents. 2020, not quite as successful. You've got an opportunity to turn around your previous season's form now with the Barbados Royals. What are you hoping to do this time around that you feel you didn't quite achieve in 2020?
Going into CPL now, I'm just looking to, also play my role again, whatever it is. I'm just looking forward to putting in a strong performance and cementing my place into the T20 World Cup team. Of course, it hasn't been picked yet, so I'm sure everybody is still up for grabs going into CPL. So I just want to go and dominate like how I dominated against Australia.
What's the number one thing you want people to remember about you when your career is finished?
I love battles. I love if I'm on the back foot, just know that I'm never going to let you kick me when I'm down. I'm gonna, even though I'm on the ground and you have your foot on me, I'm gonna try to push your foot off of me and come back hard. I just want people to remember me as a fighter, a hard worker, and just gritty.
Now, you mean a lot of those things figuratively, and I know you got a broad smile on your face for most of this interview, but you got some big guns, man. I wouldn't want to get into a fight with you in the back. And
no.
what goes into the Hayden Walsh Jr. workout regimen to get arms like you've got?
You just need a good iPhone camera to blow it up.
Time for the favorite 11. I want to remind everybody that the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast is presented by DreamCricket. The DreamCricket Pavilion Shop can help you fill up all your cricket kit requirements from top-of-the-line English willow bats made by all the top manufacturers, as well as helmets, gloves, pads, jerseys, highlight DVDs, books, and more. Get 10% off all orders over $400 using coupon code DCUSA. That's DCUSA. Go to shop.dreamcricket.com to take advantage of that offer today. Dream Cricket Academy is located at 400 Apgar Drive in Somerset, New Jersey, just a mile off of exit 12 on Interstate 287. For more information, call 908-938-3787 or email cricket@dreamcricket.com. Favorite 11 time, Hayden Walsh Jr. You ready to rock and roll?
Favorite 11, let's go.
Who is your favorite roommate on any cricket tour that you've ever been on?
Roy Silva.
Roy Silva, USA. Tell me why Roy Silva.
He was cool. He was.
If he's going to hear this, and he's going to go straight to Facebook and post it on Facebook. Walsh Jr.'s favorite ever roommate. Likes and hearts and shares.
Yeah, I don't know. He was a cool guy. He he always looked out for me, and he always we would sometimes move together. I actually went to see him at his house one time after I think Division 2. Yeah, he was just cool.
Who is your favorite athlete in the Walsh family? Not the best. Who's your favorite athlete?
I would say my brother.
Tahir.
Tahir, yeah.
Why is he your favorite in the Walsh family?
Cause he's been on, he has everything. If you see, he's almost 6 foot and he has muscles up to his ears, and I was thinking, man, if I have that kind of talent, I could hit the ball far and bowl 90 miles per hour.
What's your favorite cricket ground that you've ever experienced around the world?
Around the world, I would say seeing Brian Lara making 400. I actually saw that live, and that atmosphere, like it always brings goosebumps, up to my skin, and I can hear like the crowd just going wild and everybody just jumping up and seeing him. I think it was a sweep the ball behind square, and people just running all over. That was just such an experience. ARG, yeah.
So the old ARG. And you would have been how old at this time at the ARG?
I probably would have been like probably about 12 or 11 years old. It feels so fresh in my memory. Just seeing like, I think before that, the over before that, or a couple of overs before that, he ran on the wicket and hit Garrett Batty for 2 sixes over like out the pavilion, out the ground, and just seeing him just construct that innings was just so like amazing to see.
Aside from all the stuff your father did, bonus question, aside from all the stuff your father did, what did that experience do in terms of inspiring you to want to go on and be an international cricketer?
Yeah, for sure. From that, definitely did cement my aspirations of being a cricketer, and being able to do something like that on the field and being able to make the crowd go wild and make noise like that. That definitely did cement my aspirations.
Your favorite place to eat out on tour?
Maybe a TGI Friday. I've been to quite a few TGIs. I remember just before COVID going to TGI Friday in Sri Lanka, and that would just be our go-to spot to have just a group of guys. Just
Do you have a go-to menu item at TGI Fridays?
I think it would be the steak.
Your favorite cricketer of all time?
Shane Warne.
That's how we know you're truly a leg spinner at heart.
yeah, for sure.
Your favorite non-cricket athlete of all time? And you can't say your brother because you've already said him for one of your other
I would say Usain Bolt because he's just a superhuman.
Putting aside the inter-island rivalries by picking a Jamaican as your favorite athlete.
Yeah, for sure. Usain Bolt.
Your favorite pizza topping?
Spinach.
Popeye pizza. Where does the spinach come from? Are you a Coke or a Pepsi guy?
Coke.
Good answer. It's the only acceptable answer on this show. If you couldn't play for the USA national team in cricket, which USA national team would you have most wanted to play for in a different sport?
Rugby.
Rugby sevens. Rugby's in the Olympics ahead of cricket.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely have a go at rugby.
Your favorite movie of all time?
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. That is a classic. Do you have a favorite line from Forrest Gump? I can almost recite the movie by heart. What's your
Run, Forrest, run.
Definitely one of the most quotable lines, of course, in the movie. Last but not least, your favorite show to binge watch, whether it's on Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Paramount Plus, DVD box set. What's your go-to binge watch show to help you get through the days?
I would say Narcos.
Narcos on Netflix.
Yeah.
What makes Narcos must-see television for you?
I don't know, like Pablo Escobar, his character is just so. As much as he's such a bad guy, he just why can't you not like him?
Hayden Walsh Jr.'s favorite 11. Thank you very much, Hayden, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And I'll give you the final word. Anything you want to say that you haven't already said that people should know about you, your journey, or anything else, cricket or non-cricket, that you want to share?
I think they know enough for now. Stay tuned.
Awesome. Hayden Walsh Jr., thank you for coming on the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
One of the most likable guys I've ever met in cricket around the world, and it's hard not to root for him to succeed. Hayden Walsh Jr., wherever he goes, whether it's with USA, Barbados Royals, or the West Indies, hopefully to the T20 World Cup in the UAE. Whatever he does on the field is just a testament to hard work, sheer resilience, one of the words that he used, and willpower to just keep on fighting. He summed it up so perfectly. When his career is done, he wants to be remembered as a fighter. And that's exactly what he does on the field day in and day out, and it's led to him achieving some incredible results both for USA and for the West Indies, and also in franchise cricket as well. And we wish Hayden Walsh Jr. all the success in the world. I want to remind everybody you can subscribe to the podcast in video form on YouTube, as well as in audio form via Apple Podcasts, Anchor FM, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and plenty of other podcasting platforms. Until next time, I'm Peter Della Penna reminding everybody, God bless America and God bless American cricket.